Wouldn't it be great if you could attract anything you want easily and effortlessly? Wouldn't it be great if you could know how to make the best decisions for you and attract the right relationships and be in relationships that are really satisfying, fulfilling, and exciting? Wouldn't it be great if you could create a life that you actually want to live and one that makes you jump out of bed, excited to get started every day? Well, my premise is that you can, and when you know yourself, love yourself, and practice self-care through understanding your human design. Today's discussion is part of a larger course about understanding your purpose through your human design. And today we're going to have a little bit different twist. We're going to talk about what is a new paradigm relationship. So it's basically going from fear-based to love and trust. We'll get into some of the details in just a minute, but I want to just tell you a couple stories and give you context and why I'm wanting to share this today. So what we're going to cover today is a discussion about what is a new paradigm relationship, old paradigm versus new paradigm, how and why the rules are changing, why it's so important to be leading by example, and then a roundtable discussion. The human design is going to be a part of this. So if you don't already have a chart, please get one at freehumandesignchart.com. Although probably not a huge aspect of this particular discussion, but at least it'll give you some context. So my name is Grace Gravestock. I'm going to make this part really short. I'm a professional change manager turned, I'll call it personal transformation coach. I help women in midlife transition create a life they actually want to live. This comes from, I'm speaking from experience and leading by example because 5 years ago, my world changed. I felt like I lost everything and I was ready to check out. I found human design. I set an intention to practice my change management on myself. I realized the missing component for how to manage the transition in my life, and all the change was related to energy and frequency. I had never heard that before in my corporate career. I've worked for companies and big in countries, really impressive people, and nobody ever talked about frequency or energy. So this was a big shift in my life. Human design was the catalyst. Today, I'm on a mission to inspire 5 billion people by 2025 through what I call the Know Yourself Revolution. What this means is, my vision is if 5 billion people were actually living in alignment, oh my gosh, what kind of communication, what kind of relationships, what kind of world could we co-create together? So that is who I am. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more personal stuff today about new paradigm relationships and why this is something I'm passionate about. This chart that we're looking at here is just an example from a recent client session that I had. This is called a connection chart. And you basically put both people's charts in and you see the energetic third person or energetic entity that is created between those two people. And it's fascinating because you can see these different aspects. You can see here the things that we look at. I don't want to get too much into that. I want to save time for the discussion, but the point is that everything is energy, and human design shows us that we are, with our energetic blueprint, that we are special, unique, and when we come together in partnership with someone else, and it doesn't need to be a romantic partnership, when we come into anyone else's aura, this could be at a coffee shop, this could be a family member, I mean anyone, when two auras combine, a third entity is created. And how do we deal with that? How do we maximize the potential of any relationship? Most of us at least have maybe have a primary relationship of some sort. Maybe it's a romantic partnership, maybe it's a parent-child thing, whatever it is, all of this applies. And as we are on a new energetic platform now, we're finally in the new paradigm. To Rusty's comments earlier, everything is shifted, everything is different. So how does that affect our relationships? That's what we're going to discuss today. But I want to start with this example because in my own personal life and the experiences I'm going to share in just a minute, you're going to see why this is so relevant in real life. Today, we're going to talk about old versus new paradigm. We're going to come back to this slide. I want to just tell you a little bit more about why I'm passionate about this. So I picked some pictures here to show you. When I left my marriage of 15 years and my husband put a knife to my neck and I had to leave in a hurry, I was so grateful that I had this friend, Lynette, and she couldn't be here today, but I think we're going to have some future conversations and have her share some of her input. I moved in with her and her partner at the time, Ray, And I learned so much from them. We became like a family. And as I started processing the pain from my marriage, my dysfunctional codependent marriage, I started really thinking about relationships. My purpose in life is to connect, motivate, and inspire others to be their, to maximize their potential. And in my incarnation cross, I am here, cross of a sleeping phoenix. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow, incarnation crosses and what that means. But essentially, it means that it's a code. There's 4 codes. Everyone has 4 codes, and they make up 70% of your purpose. So when I moved in with Ray and Lynette, something really interesting happened. The dynamic between us, and this chart only shows 2 people. I actually should have put an example of 3 people, a pentachart, but the 3 of us together created this beautiful energy that was just really harmonious. And we lived together for 3 years. We had a great time. I felt like we all felt like we were family. I thought this would last forever. And I invited, this is my niece. We traveled the world together. The 3 of us, sometimes we included my niece and others. We used to teach classes together, Ray and Lynette and I. And this was one of our live classes here in the Austin area at Lotus Bend, right before the sea thing happened. So we were in the process of teaching some of these things, the new paradigm relationship stuff. That really came from my mentor, Ray. He was the primary, and he's a projector. He's a 5-1 projector. Lynette's a 2-4 generator, and I'm a 2-5 manifesting generator. So the 3 of us together created like this interesting team, and we became like a family. We spent a lot of time together, and this was my first introduction to a new paradigm relationship. Why? Well, it's just different. I mean, how many people do you know that live together, like 3 people living? It was like, what's that TV show, Three's Company, or something like that. It was, people would joke about that, and some people thought Lynette and I were lesbians. I mean, whatever, go with whatever you want to think about. It wasn't like that at all. They were in a romantic partnership at the time. I was a good friend to both of them. Technically, when I started exploring real, different relationship paradigms, I came across polyamorous relationships. So I read a book about it. And I realized that technically speaking, we had a polyamorous relationship. Now, it wasn't sexual for me. I was just a friend, but it was the connection that we all had. We were very close friends, all 3 of us. And, we did all kinds of things together. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you is to say this was my experience for 3 years living in a non-traditional kind of family or relationship. And it really changed my beliefs and my ideas about what a relationship could be and should be, and, really questioning all the old paradigm stuff that I grew up with. I grew up in a very traditional Christian, far right family. My sisters are Faith, Hope, and Joy. My brother is Joel, very Bible based. And so the idea of new paradigm relationship, when I first came into the context of it, I was like, what, really kind of blown away. And I had a lot of my fears come up, and, is this wrong, or what is this? And people, like I said, people would assume weird things. I say weird things. They would assume things about us that weren't, that the only basis for it was that we were 3 people living together. And there was, it's just interesting. It really helped me to see how much conditioning and programming I had around relationships, and other people too, in their reaction to us. For instance, Lynette and I both had really short hair, so people assumed we were lesbians. People saw the 3 of us living together and thought we were all just like having a orgy all the time, or whatever. I heard this later. It was weird. But the point is, it really challenged my beliefs around what a relationship. So I wanted to really explore it. And so I did. So Ray and I put this together, old paradigm versus new paradigm. We talked at length about it. We had many, many, many conversations about our human design. And they were the ones, it came from Ray initially, that to get a human design reading. And they weren't as much really that into it when I moved in. But when I got my reading, and I was like, hey, do you guys see what's happening? I'd see them fighting. I'd be like, here's what's going on. And I would talk about about this, the aspect of whatever the energetics between them, and it really helped their relationship. And they told me that, that it was very significant to have my insight as a third party to observe and to point out some of the human design aspects. And it really encouraged both of them to dig a lot deeper into human design. And then I also, of course, dug into it to try to understand what is this dynamic between us. That's really interesting, because any two of us was not, it was just not as good as the three of us together. We just had a really, really interesting dynamic. I should really do a slide that shows the three of our charts. That would probably be more interesting if we do this discussion again. But all this to say, I want to give you context and background. I believe, and I know to be true, that we are in what I call a new paradigm. A new paradigm is new ways of living, working, and being. And a few years ago in meditation, I got a very clear message that my business needed to change names. And so it used to be Silver Lining Coaching, and I got a clear message, like, your business needs to be New Paradigm Transitions. So I changed that, and we started this thing called New Paradigm U, which was going to be an online thing to help people learn human design and new paradigm principles, and really help people adjust. Well, things in our family changed, and everybody went their separate ways. And so that never really came to fruition. But I have been practicing this in my own life. And the reason I mention that is because part of what I think is really important, what I know to be important in the new paradigm, is that we are all called to lead by example. And so in the old paradigm, you could read a book and do whatever and call yourself an expert in something, even if you didn't have real life experience. In the new paradigm, I feel that it's very important that we lead by example. So we're not just making stuff up. We are here to share from our own experience, and whatever we have expertise in that's personal to us, that's what we have credibility to share. So that's why I'm spending a few more minutes here in this giving context, so that you know where I'm coming from and where all this comes from. So it came from lots of discussions with Ray, who's a projector. Some of you, may understand this, and this might be new for you, but it's my belief that projectors are here to guide us into the new paradigm. In fact, we all have an important role to play in the new paradigm. The generators are the builders. They're here to build the infrastructure for the new paradigm. Manifesting generators or time benders like me, we're here to express build. We're here to create shortcuts to help more people get onto what I call the new energetic platform. The manifestors are here to initiate new things, to start things, to get them going, and then direct the energy of the generators and manifesting generators to keep it operationalized. So we are creating the world that we want to live in on this new energetic platform, and there are new rules, and these, I believe, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's principles that help us understand how things are shifting from the old world to the new world, and then how this relates to relationships. I think is really fascinating. What I started to say earlier is that my incarnation cross is Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix, which actually is all about relationships and intimacy. So when I learned about that, it really opened me up to having more public conversations about relationships and intimacy. It's always been something I've been personally invested in and fascinated with and focused on and prioritizing in my own life. But until I saw that that was a key component in my human design and part of my life purpose, I was very hesitant to share, because it's kind of personal, telling everyone this now, like about my living situation and, our relationships and stuff like that. It's a little bit intimate, but here's the thing. I do also believe that in the new paradigm, the only way forward is authenticity and transparency. And one of my teachers, Masajati, that Ray introduced me to, he says we're in the age of transparency. So it means that going forward, as more and more of our intuitive gifts come online, as we're more, connected with our higher aspects, we are going to be able to see each other more clearly. And so hiding things is not going to work. Relationships that are based in fear and control they're just not going to work. The energetics don't support that. So we're in a new place. It is already affecting everyone. I mean, just look around, right? We've got the sea thing happening. So many changes in the world right now. There's there's no argument, right, that things are changing. And so my contribution to humanity right now is to share from my own experience what my own perspective is on what is changing and how that affects our relationships, because that is part of my incarnation cross and my purpose. So having said that, I think I talked about why I'm leading by example, and let's just talk briefly about what these principles are to set the context, and then we've got about 30 minutes for discussion, and we can share stories and experiences from you. So to just talk about what is an old paradigm relationship versus a new paradigm relationship, I kind of made some cliff notes here, but then there's an image that we created here. But my short version here is just so you can follow along. The old paradigm relationship was based in fear. If you know, for instance, if you got married, there was a lot of fear of there could be, I mean, not always, obviously everybody's different, but for me, there was a lot of fear in my marriage, and my husband was very fearful that I was going to find someone else and run away with them, which was kind of silly. But there was a lot of fear in that relationship, and that created a different energetic dynamic that I lived under, and I basically curled myself up over time, being in that space with so much fear, and it really was limiting to my own expression, because everywhere we went, you know, he was telling me that I was flirting or that I was doing this or that, and I really wasn't, and I was so wanting to please him. And this goes to my open solar plexus. So if you have an open solar plexus, you'll know that part of what you're here for is to overcome codependency. And so that is one of my big challenges is in life, in this lifetime, is to overcome that codependency. And so that fear was a big component of the codependency, because, you know, he was fearful that I was going to find someone else and leave him, and I was afraid that I wasn't going to please him. I mean, there's a lot of fear. And so going forward, the only way forward is trust. You know, living in love and trust, choosing love and trust instead of fear. I mean, this applies to everything in our lives, but specifically we're talking about relationships today. The second thing is security. You know, in the old paradigm, in the old world, our security was based on external things like how much money do you have, how big is your house, how big of a bank account do you have, or retirement savings or whatever. And it was all these external factors. But going forward in the new paradigm, our security is based on trusting ourselves and finding that that source of guidance within, that is our higher aspect that we are starting to open up to as you know, as the energetics shift and change. And if you've ever explored Gene Keys is a variation on human design that kind of explained it to me in a way that helped me understand. It's kind of like, as the energy shifts, there's a lot of things in our DNA that are going to be unlocked, and we're going to have our gifts coming online. What does that mean? For instance, our intuitive gifts. And I've experienced in the last couple of months, amazing experiences of like telepathic communication with my sisters. I say sisters in air quotes, spiritual sisters, people that I spend a lot of time with. And I've noticed that I've seen it in others, and I've heard about it too. And I'm, you know, curious if you've experienced this too. Please, you know, make a note for yourself and share in just a few minutes. But the security based on your own internal guidance system is the only way forward. Attachments was huge in my marriage. There was a lot of emotional attachment to people, places, and things. And when my husband and I moved from England, we literally shipped 45 boxes of books. That was the only thing that we shipped, really. We were both into education and books and knowledge, and we had a lot of attachment to those things and to each other. But the problem with attachment is it's kind of like, if you think about the way, let's say, grasshoppers communicate, you know, they've got these little delicate antennas, you know, and they communicate in a frequency way. But if you poured cement on top of them, I mean, obviously it would kill them, and it would make them not be able to communicate, you know, with their delicate little antennas. And that is the image that comes to mind when I think about attachments versus connections. In the old world, we had attachments, which was more like cement. Like my husband and I, you know, we were like attached, and we had committed till death do us part, even though we were both so miserable. And I remember telling him many times, look, I'm sorry you feel like I've ruined your life or messed it up or whatever. Like, I don't want to ever be that for anyone. And when I learned about what the concept of attachments and old and new paradigm relationships, I was like, whoa, that's what was happening. You know, we had a serious attachment to each other, and that was not healthy. We were not able to move and grow. And it was, and going forward, it's about connections that are real life, face to face, you know, in the moment connection, so that when you and I are in conversation, we are connected. But when we part ways, I'm able to go live my life and you're able to go live your life. And there's not this energy draw on either of us for that attachment that we would have maybe had in the old paradigm. When we talk about judgment versus discernment, in the old paradigm, we had judgment. It was there's a lot of judgment, like, oh, the three of you live together, you must be having an orgy. I mean, that's what people told me, which was silly, but there's a lot of judgment. I mean, they have no way of knowing. And a better way going forward is discernment. So this is where we tap into our own inner guidance system. We learn how to make decisions based on our type, which is something we covered yesterday, and using our discernment, we're able to make better calls on what's going on and what's best for us, rather than using a lot of judgment that's not going to help anyone. And also, judgment comes from fear, and discernment is based on facts. So it just feels a lot lighter, the energetic of it. Almost done here, and then we'll jump into the conversation, the discussion. So obligation, that's the key word. So in my marriage, it was like till death do us part, even if it kills us. And it felt like it almost did kill us. And so that was part of the old contracts, which is part of the cross of planning, which is the 450-year energetic, I'm going to call it like a network of energy that held up this old paradigm that we're now leaving. And part of that was obligation. So marriage was a contract, and originally it was instituted as a way to keep families, to connect families and land. But it was really about property. It was not necessarily about intimate relationship between two people that really loved each other and wanted to be together. And so that concept carried on, and it has become something that that almost killed me. So, till death do us part, like literally we were going to kill each other. And I'm so glad that I didn't check out, because it almost happened. But going forward is going to be, it's right now, it's all about desire. So you're going to be best served in a relationship where you have desire to be with each other. It doesn't mean that you don't commit. You might commit to each other. There's nothing wrong with commitment, but always coming from the place of desire instead of obligation. And because like, need to be obligated, that's very heavy energy, and it's very old paradigm, and it's based in fear, whereas desire is based in love and trust. So that's the key words to remember: fear versus love and trust. And then almost done here is when in the old paradigm, we would try to fix or change the other person. I know I spent 15 years trying to fix and change myself, because my husband would tell me how messed up I was and how broken I was. And I believed him. I didn't have any other point of reference. And I was looking for validation outside of myself, which, again, one of the lessons of the open solar plexus. And in the new paradigm, where what it's about is accepting the other person as they are and loving them unconditionally rather than conditionally. I remember early on in my marriage, my husband saying, look, we're married, and this is what it means. And if you ever step over these lines, like, it's over, we're done. And there was a lot of fear in that conversation. And it was heavy energy. It wasn't very pleasant to think about, oh my gosh, I've made this decision and I'm stuck with it for life, like, even no matter what happens. And there it was. It turned into a very painful and yeah, just a very unhealthy situation. And then the last thing is, in the old paradigm, we've been conditioned and programmed to think we have to save someone from something, and so we take responsibility on for them, and we put others first before ourselves. Oh, I realized I cut this off somehow. I think it was anyway. In the new paradigm, it's all about personal responsibility and taking sole ownership for your energy, being a sovereign being. And so that is, in a nutshell, what the difference is, in my opinion, in my perspective, of an old versus a new paradigm relationship. And so I've been exploring this in my own life for the last 5 years. And so that's the basis on which I'm sharing it now, is just sharing my own experience. And I'm curious and interested to know what other people's experience is. And I would love to open the floor to a roundtable discussion. So this image is just one of the other classes that we held together, Lynette and Ray and I, as we were teaching about this and sharing about this a couple of years ago about new paradigm relationships and also human design here in the Austin area. And so as I open up the floor for this discussion, I'd love for you to speak from your own experience and then share a story, and try not to take up too much time. A couple minutes, and if we have longer, we'll come back to you, but I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to share, and then we'll, time for Q&A or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor, and we've got a lot of great folks on the call for discussion. Who would like to share their experience or their thoughts about a new paradigm relationship? I guess I'll ask that first. Go ahead, CJ.
So I was just asking Kara if she had some questions. I have a few, so kind of see how this goes. I'm a manifesting generator, and she's a generator. Mm-hmm. And I found a level of maybe frustration or anger at times with myself. Like, I hate to say anger, because most of the time it comes out just in like creative frustration at times. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, I guess, any advice on us working together. It feels like our energy we can get on fire and, have so much that we could do together. But sometimes I feel like I need to, I don't know, it's almost like a freedom that maybe I need or something. I don't know, maybe you can just speak to that. I know that's broad, but I'm just kind of curious where maybe we're falling out of alignment and why I might find frustration.
Sure. No, it's a great question, and it's easy to answer, actually. So you mentioned you're a manifesting generator. She's a generator. So what we call the not self theme in your human design chart is frustration. And for you as a manifesting generator, it's actually a combination of anger and frustration, because you're a hybrid, the manifestor and the generator. And so manifesting generator, so you mentioned the words, anger and frustration. And so if you're noticing that in yourself, and if you're listening to this conversation and you're not one of those types, look on your chart to see what your not self theme is, because that's really what it is. It's a guide to help you know when you're in alignment and when you're not. So generator types are meant to find and feel satisfied most of the time. And when you're in a state of satisfaction, you know that you're in alignment and things are going well. And if you're for you being a manifesting generator, you're mentioning the anger and frustration, or for you, Carrie, as a generator, it's going to be probably more frustration necessarily. It's not to say you're not going to have anger, but just as a general thing to look for, that is how you know if you're out of alignment. So since you mentioned you're experiencing this, how can you experience less of that and more satisfaction, I think is what you're saying. And the easy answer is live in more alignment with your design. So what I understand that to be, and how that's worked for me, and I am also a manifesting generator, is really learning who I am through my chart and understanding that I'm not broken and there's nothing to fix. I'm perfect the way I am. In fact, I'm designed, and as you are, designed for something specific. I say something specific. What I mean is your purpose in this life is to be you. But if you don't really know who you are, most of us have a lot of conditioning and programming. And so we're living out a life that we're trying to please someone else, especially if you have an open solar plexus, that is going to be even more of an issue for you. But a lot of us, regardless of our design, have picked up a lot of conditioning and programming. And so we're trying to live up to an image that we have in our heads that somebody gave us. Maybe it was the media, maybe it was somebody close to us that told us or showed us or somehow convinced us of something that our life should look like, but it's not necessarily in alignment with who we are. So the first and easiest answer in how to live in more alignment and have more satisfaction as a generator, or more success as a projector, or whatever your type is to find out, to spend a little more time, invest in yourself to learn about who you really are. And you'll find, for instance, for both of you, since you're generator types, you're going to just want to do the things that make you feel good, that make you feel satisfied. So that means in terms of work, in terms of relationships, that's always your biggest litmus test. And it's going to be for both of you because you're both generator types. Does this feel satisfying to me? And if it does, keep doing it. If it doesn't, then if it's frustrating or it makes you feel anger and frustration, it just means you're out of alignment, and it's not a big deal. It's just like, hey, get back on the path. your path is satisfying. So then you can spend some time, either if it's not clear to you what you find satisfying, this is where the gratitude journal practice comes in that I teach, which is you 5 minutes a day minimum, pen and paper. I'm so happy and grateful that, and then you just start writing what you're genuinely happy and grateful for, and that helps you see the patterns, and it helps you see what brings you satisfaction. Does that make sense, CJ?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, first of all, like to kind of pay homage to Carrie. Carrie does a great job of always just kind of giving me that space to like always like, hey, like you are you, and like just be wherever I get to fit in. I think, and the more I've kind of read about the types and stuff, there's a level of maybe it's patience. Like I literally, like maybe I'm waiting on a big breakthrough or something, because right now we're in the building phase, and there's parts of it that I'm really excited about this happening, and it's like it's just like waiting for that breakthrough or something to kind of hit me, and I just find myself frustrated because I have this energy to want to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I get it. And so I want to address two things that you mentioned. One is you have this energy, you have this extra energy, and you feel like you're not being able to express it fully. Part of that is because you are a manifesting generator. You're meant to multitask. You're the only type that's designed to get to be doing multiple things at the same time. In fact, if somebody tries to tell you to stop, just do one thing at a time, CJ, you've probably heard that before. It's not true for you. It's not true for me. My husband used to just rail on me for years. Like, why don't you focus on one thing? Why do you have to be doing so many things at a time? Like, how stupid are you? Was the message that I got. But when I learned about human design, I'm like, oh, I get it. Because the thing is, for people like you and I, CJ, we have so much energy internally just by nature of the manifesting generator configuration that it means that we have to be doing multiple things at a time. And if we're not, then we're just going to burn ourselves out, because like all this energy is just going around. It's got to have an outlet. So it's really important for you and I and other generators too, so this applies to all generators, to make sure you get enough physical exercise in your day. You know, physical activity, that can be one way to make sure you get it out. And then the other thing to check on is if you're not sleeping well, you're probably not getting enough sleep, enough exercise. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, promise I'm passing on.
Sure.
So I noticed that, and I don't know if this is synonymous with the generator type, Carrie has a hard time with the obviously multitasking, right? I'm like right now, like even in our talk, I'm writing down, I'm like all over like these ideas and laterally thinking, but I'm obviously working alongside somebody. I don't want to overwhelm her. So is there any tips or anything on like that? You know what I mean? How can I have the space to kind of do it my way, but also to like really pay into like contributing to her the best? That makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a very common pairing, you know, the manifesting generator and generators together in partnership. And it's a beautiful pairing. I mean, you guys actually, well, every pairing has its challenges, but absolutely the way you can maximize that, the short answer is to fully embrace who you are. And for you, Carrie, to fully embrace who you are, and then practice interdependence in your relationship instead of codependence, which is instead of depending on each other to keep things going, you become more self-contained. It doesn't mean that you don't collaborate or that you don't co-create or that you don't do things together. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying is be sovereign in your own being, not needing the other person to, not requiring the other person in order to function, because that is codependence. And so really the short answer is just learn about who you are and fully embrace and embody who you are, and then have an attitude of acceptance towards the other and knowing that she's going to be different. And for you, Carrie, knowing that CJ is different, and then embracing each other's gifts, because the beauty about a pairing between the two of you is, and I'm not trying to encourage you to stay together if you're not wanting to stay together, but what I'm saying is that those two configurations together are really beautiful because you have so many things in common. You both need to wait for something to respond to. You're both doers. You're both going to be able to build together very easily. It's not to say that projectors and generators can't build together. It's just different. So the bottom line is, to answer your question, you be you and you be you, and accept and understand each other. And these principles that I share on that, you know, I really encourage you to screenshot that and just have a discussion, you know, between the two of you, and really talk about where you're at with that and how that feels for you, and how you can really maximize your own self-expression while still being in the partnership, because there's a lot you can accomplish together. I mean, wow, as a manifesting generator and a generator, if you guys are aligned and you want to co-create, the sky's the limit. Like, you're both builders, you have a lot to give. Now, I would encourage you to, if you're working out certain things, consider a reading, a partnership assessment, is one of the packages that I offer. And that way you can get a deep dive, she can get a deep dive, together you get, kind of the third entity that's created in your relationship to really see how to maximize that relationship, because every relationship has opportunities and every relationship has challenges. And when you understand who you are and you understand who she is, and both of you understand and accept each other for who they are and don't try to change each other, that is when the magic can happen. If you're trying to make her or him, someone else, I mean, that's just not, it's going to have a life, it's not going to last forever. And the other thing is, in the new paradigm, and I know this is dicey for me to even say this, I don't think that it means that everybody has to have shorter term relationships, or that there's any duration of anything. But I do think that the energetics going forward are going to support more fluidity in terms of relationships and how they flow, as opposed to how they've been in the past. And so it's not, again, it's not to say that you're not going to be able to have commitment between the two of you if that's what you agree on, but I just feel like there's going to be a lot more fluidity going forward, and that's going to be required. So those principles that are on that image, I think it could really benefit you to just have a discussion. And then if you want to reach out, to talk about a partnership assessment or a reading for one or both of you, I mean, I'd certainly be happy to help with that. Or even send you resources. If I don't resonate with you as a person, I would just want to encourage you. The bottom line is, you learn more about you learn more about you. And then as you develop more sovereignty in yourself and really full expression of who you are, that's when you can really co-create and collaborate more effectively. And that's also when you're going to be able to be in more alignment, not with just yourselves, but with each other. And you're going to find that it's satisfying. But if it's not satisfying, and it's frustrating and making you angry, for instance, that's just a litmus test to say, hey, got to change something. So what is it? And that's when you open communication, share your heart, speak from your heart, not your mind. And that's going to make a big difference.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I heard, like, it's interesting. I heard trust out of that, because we have autonomy, like we work really well independently. But it's funny, I think my frustration or anger comes from like the times that I'm trying to work in the same space or something like that sometimes. And it's like, man, I get to like trust, like, you're doing this thing and I'm like doing this thing, and that's okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. One other quick question for you guys. What's your profile and what's your profile? The numbers.
6'2", sacral generator.
Oh,
and then, is that what you're speaking to?
Yeah. And what are you, CJ?
And he's a 4'6". 4'6",
manifestor generator.
6 and 6'2". Okay. So you guys have the 6 line in common. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
I don't know if this is the space to ask, but we were the LAX Defiance. What? No. Okay, never mind. All right, I think they just for another time. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your questions and comments. I appreciate the conversation. Thanks, you guys. Okay, who else has a question or something to share? Have you been in a new paradigm relationship? Have you wanted to explore it? Have you been able to explore it? Do you agree with this as a basis for a relationship? Is there anything you want to share on it?
I think it's exactly where we're going.
Yes.
So because we're in the dawn of Aquarius, right? And Aquarius is all about knowing who we are on a very divine level, right? And being true to that, being authentic to that. And because we're being authentic to that, we are who we were meant to be, right? Because we're all divine expressions of God, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Even if you don't believe in God, it's a higher power. Mm-hmm. So by us doing that and not having to feel like we have to be a certain way or say certain things to make the other happy, we're being true to that divine spark, right? And the more we do that, the more harmony we're going to all experience. Mm-hmm. It's just more harmonious because it's a frequency, right? Yeah. Whereas we were living in a frequency where there was a lot of resistance within the body.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
So my design is emotional, right? So that's
You just read my mind. See,
I'm
that's
so
an
lucky.
I was just going to ask you that. And what is your profile?
4-6.
4-6. Oh, wow. Wow. So many 4-6s in this, the classes this week. That's awesome. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. Susan, you said and what's your type?
Projector.
You're of course, yeah, you're the projector, right? Of course this resonates with you. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the class.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Awesome. Who else has a question or comment or something to share?
Mine would be a comment or something to share. I've been, I took a quick picture because I wanted to be able to refer back to it, but the chart about the old paradigm and new paradigm, looking at it in context of my relationship with myself, because right now I'm not in any kind of, other than friends, I'm not in any kind of like intimate relationship with another person, and just understanding how much I have lived in, the old stuff and practicing living in the new. And the one in particular that hit me today was that, security based on trusting myself as opposed to security from outside, whether it's, money or friends or, housing or, whatever it might be. It's like when I've had the ups and downs of life, it's like when I stop and listen inside and like, okay, what's right for me, and trusting myself, even if it makes absolutely no sense to anybody else, that's when I've been, at peace, or I forget now the word, when you are in self as a generator. But just,
Satisfaction.
feeling like I'm in the flow of life as opposed to being in frustration and anger and, all of that other stuff. So anyway, really good stuff today. Thanks.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for the feedback, Mary. I've just put a link in the chat. So if you are, if you're here today and you want the recording, or you want to, I'd love to hear your feedback, especially today. I know I've sent the link out this whole week, but this is the first time that I've ever talked about new paradigm relationships in a class online. And it's, it's a little bit more personal and intimate. So I'm I know there's room for improvement, and I'd love to hear what you felt worked and didn't work. So please take a couple minutes to give feedback at the end if you don't mind, and also get on the mailing list if you want. I'm trying to get that working right now. It's all manual, but I do want to share value, and I do want to really positively impact 5 billion people by 2025. So that does mean scaling. I've got to learn how to do that better. So thank you for your patience. I see you coming on camera, Becca. Do you have something you want to share?
I do. Thank you so much. Mary really hit home. Like that was beautiful, because I do realize why I found your course through human design, and it was more for this, because for the last year and a half I went to sit in plant medicine to find my gifts. My ego was so, like, my belief system was so strong, and I'm such a, like, it's got to be this way kind of person, that I couldn't even like undo the old structure to find that passionate person as my truest self. So I literally have sat in plant medicine for a year and a half, like every 60 days to change. And this person is who has come out right here. This everything that you talk about, the old paradigm versus the new paradigm. I have a journal for every one of these things that I have changed inside myself. And that's exactly what's going to happen, right? We are going to change that inside of ourselves. And then, and so now that I look at all this, I stepped into the, okay, God, I feel like almost ready enough that I'm going to take my resistance away to call in my partner for my future, like, right? And so now it's like, oh gosh, now this class, I'm like, oh, maybe it's really coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Because now I have a framework to be like, look, it's not just about me and internally and the stuff I found on through my own psychedelic experience, right? This is like, it's not just me, it's Grace, and it's this person, it's that person, and we're all starting to resonate together. So thank you so much for like broadening it and coming at it from the perspective of the relationship, right? Because it's like, it takes all of us to put the parts together to then, I mean, I'm a manifesting generator, right? I want to take, like you said earlier, and create shortcuts for people because I took the long way. My shortcut for me was plant medicine. Like that really was. I would have unfolding the resistance in me absolutely would have been so much longer because I'm just, if I have a value, I'm going to hold to it forever. And so to undo those values has just been really life-changing for me. So thank you so much for the class and the new paradigm and our resonating with you and connecting, because this is so exciting to find my tribe.
Yay. Yay, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you, Becca. That's exciting. That's yeah, what a beautiful story. And I'm glad you highlighted it too, as did Mary, how important it is to do the internal work. You know, we have to start first with ourselves. And so as I as I processed my last marriage and I decided I'm going to date, like, how do I do this? And I haven't been in the dating world in so long. What I started doing is taking this image, I had it on my phone and I would just share it with somebody that expressed interest in me. And I'm like, hey, this is the kind of relationship that I want. So look at this, let's talk about it. And if it doesn't resonate with you, like let's not waste anyone's time, right? Like I mean, you're a manifesting generator, you get this, right? We're just like time benders, just get on with it. So let's give me the shortcut. Let's get right to it. If you're not, if you're not in alignment, like let's move on. You go with what you need, I need, whatever. So that has helped me a lot. And it's really helped me to have more satisfying conversations with potential, dates or partners or whatever. And it's just been a lot of fun. I mean, and it's an experiment. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say I have it figured out or that it's all peaches and cream all the time. I think the biggest, well, anyway, there's a lot more conversation we can have on this, and I'm just looking at the time, so I'll be sensitive to the time, and we'll finish this another time. But let me go ahead and share my slides and just talk about, if you want more personalized help, a mini reading, a deep dive, partnership assessment, or you're wanting to really look at those 4 codes in your human design, in your incarnation cross, we're going to talk about that in tomorrow's session. But this package, Activate Your Life Purpose, is 2 one-hour sessions, usually over a 2-week period, where we do a deep dive and then we look at those codes and we look at your gene keys too. So that, and then probably what's most relevant to this particular discussion is the partnership assessment. So that's 3 90-minute sessions with both partners, and then with the third entity and that's created between the 2 of you. And that can really help you understand what's going on with you and your relationship and how you can really maximize it. So we have a couple more minutes if you can stay for your takeaway, and then I sent you the link to please provide feedback if you don't mind, especially about this discussion. It's very close to my heart, a little bit more personal than usual, and I do want to know what worked and what didn't work and what I could do better and different next time, because I do want to start opening this up as a conversation. I want to have a podcast and interview others who are relationship experts to really get their take on it. I think it'd make for a very interesting conversation. So as I look at the time, it's been an hour. So if I guess I want to just go around the room. Would you mind just sharing, if you haven't already said everything you want to say, just kind of go around and share your takeaway from the discussion? Start with you, CJ and Carrie.
My takeaway was just really reinforcing something I think I might like, resistance against just trust. Really, it's just having faith and like that autonomy. So that was really nice, reinforcing that.
Perfect. How about you, Carrie?
Yeah, I would say just the dynamic. It was a reinforcement as well for me too. Of like that I can see like a lot of us in this like new paradigm, and like seeing and trusting and feeling that like energy like push towards that, and it feels beautiful and cohesive. So I really enjoyed hearing that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. How about you, Katarina?
I think as feedback, because like the form for the new paradigm might be like new to a lot of us. So like spending time kind of going over that and explaining that, and you did that briefly, but like in order to have a discussion, we kind of need to understand it a little bit more because it's like a newer topic to a lot of us. So spending like maybe, if I don't know how much time you want to spend on it, but like summarizing it in a different way or like explaining that more,
Okay.
because it's like a new topic for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great feedback. I appreciate that. And I do have some slides that I could bring out that could be, we could spend more time actually discussing it. That's a great point. So I think I'll do this again and really spend more time on what does it mean, and then have maybe make it a little bit longer so that people can provide feedback.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. How about you, Becca? Anything more you want to add about your takeaway?
No, you guys said it all. I love all of it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And you, Mary, do you have a takeaway other than what you've already shared?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it. We've been hearing for, at least I've been hearing for years now about, like the rise of feminine energy, and this feels very much like we've been in this, what do you call it? Thing of planning for, like the last 400 years, which is very much, patriarchy, masculine, blah, 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 blah. And now we're moving into that love and trust and looking into yourself for your answers as opposed to it being outside of you. And that's very much the feminine, so we're coming to that part of the cycle again, and just how wonderful that is. And just today was really great. So thanks so much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thanks, Mary. And Susan, do you have anything more you want to add, like a takeaway?
I think I said everything I needed to say. I think it was a wonderful presentation. I totally agree with where you're going with this. I mean, I'm seeing it all around me and even within myself. So thank you so much for bringing this out to the public.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, well, thanks again. Please take a moment to do that survey if you wouldn't mind. I would love to have a follow-up conversation if you'd like, and you can get more. You can schedule time to do that at askgrace.info. I look forward to connecting again soon. We do have class tomorrow on incarnation crosses. Hope to see you there. Thank you.